All right. Let's get this out of the way first. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed on Tailboard Talks Firefighter podcast are solely those of the speakers, guests, and host, and do not in any way represent the thoughts or views or opinions of any other employer, partnership, or sponsor. The material and information in this podcast is for general information purposes only and should be used at the listener's discretion.
All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tailboard Talks Firefighter podcast. My name's Chris, your host from 4th Shift Firefighter. Quick one today because, man, I'm still on vacation mode for another day. And today was a real toss-up doing this episode or just posting one from the vault. Katie voted from the vault, and I think I'm going to do that next week or maybe just recreate it. But a while ago, Patrick Rasmussen and I did one about promotional testing season. And we went through our experiences because we tested together and studied together. And it was my second process and his first promotional process. And so we had a bunch of just advice and what we did and kind of running through the whole thing. So we, where I work, have a process coming up in September. So that might be a good one to repost. But I wanted to get on tonight and talk a little bit about flexibility versus mobility. And I have my notepad here because I usually say the wrong word. I usually say stability instead of flexibility. So I got myself all straightened out here. Now, before we get going, last week I said that Rescue 1 CBD was shadow banned by Meta. And as far as I know, it's still true. But you guys did go on and check him out and check out some of his stuff and share it. And I appreciate that greatly because it helps him. It helps me. He's one of my affiliates. And it helps the fire service. I mean, he's got a great product. He's a great dude doing stuff. So if you can, go to Rescue 1 CBD. That's the number one, Rescue 1 CBD on Instagram. And just share something from his page so it gets traction. Because whatever he posts is just dead in the water. No traction at all. So you have to repost stuff to your stories or whatever. Share it with people. He also got the topical roll-on back in stock. And I think he was advertising free shipping. If you're listening to this later, you can't expect free shipping, you fireman. But if you're listening like now, maybe you could get free shipping because he was advertising that when it got back in stock. Go on my website. There's a click-through for that for Rescue 1 CBD. It gives me a cut because he's one of my affiliates, and also you get a discount on the products by using the code there. The other one's 4th Frontier, the heart rate monitoring strap. It's the only strap in the industry that records lead to EKG. So you can look back over your training session and see what your heart was doing the whole time through lead 2. There's also a code for that, an affiliate link for that on the website, 4thshiftfirefighter.com, number 4th, shiftfirefighter.com. I got my notes written down here because, like I said, I'm on vacation mode. I got vacation face. Got my little playoff beard going, as Kurt would say. I got my sunburn. That's turning bronze in no time, luckily. Just got back from Mackinac. We towed the camper from the suburbs of Chicago, about an hour west of the city of Chicago, to Mackinac, which I don't understand. Is it Mackinac or Mackinac? I've seen it both ways. It says it both ways. One is Mackinac City and Mackinac Island, or maybe the opposite, Mackinac City, Mackinac Island. I don't know. Took an awesome jet boat to get there. Nathan loved it. But all that to say, might be growing up into a big boy truck soon because towing that thing back with the 1500 was fine. It was rough on the way out, fine coming back, but I started looking at 2500s. Actually, just today, I went and checked out a couple 2500s in the area. So, long story short, I'm going to need you to donate some coffee money and buy some CBD because Daddy needs a new truck. On the topic of that, if you want to support the show, 2 ways to do it. 2 of the easiest ways to do it. 1, share stuff. If you see something or you hear something in this podcast on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you're listening, and you like it, share it. These have all been relatively short the past couple weeks. Been kind of nice doing 10, 12, 13-minute episodes. Share it. I put a ton of stuff on YouTube and on Instagram, little clips, like 15 to 1 minute long clips. Share those. Rate and review the podcast. That all helps so big. If you don't want to do that, or that's too many steps or whatever, I have another option for you. You can donate in increments of $3 to the Buy Me a Coffee page, and that's also on the website. It's in the show notes. And it's just a way to support the show and say, hey, I don't hate what you're doing, or good job, or you didn't screw that up too bad. It's all very much appreciated. So it's called the Buy Me a Coffee button. $3 increments, little or as much as you want. I certainly appreciate it. It's just a direct way to support the show. Get my dirty socks off camera here. Big shout out. I know I'm doing a lot of preamble stuff, but big shout out. This is what we're talking about today. And if you're listening, you're not seeing what I'm holding, but I got a foam roller and a tennis ball. The reason I wanted to go over flexibility versus mobility is because I'm going out to the West Chicago Fire Protection District tomorrow night. And it's the first time going out since the world imploded and shut down a handful of years ago. It might be ringing a bell what happened there. I went out to them a handful of times, did some workouts out there, did a couple seminars out there, and then everything shut down. And with the kids getting busier, with me just not wanting to, because it takes up a lot of time, I hadn't really pursued any departments to go out and do on-site seminars anymore. And then one of the guys from West Chicago texted me and said, hey, let's get you back out. So their union is actually paying for this one. And I'm going out before their union meeting for about an hour, 45 minutes, about an hour. Before their union meeting, I'm going to go through this stuff: flexibility, mobility, stretching, foam rolling, injury reduction, principles of that. And then they get to just go right into their union meeting and I'm out of there. So great way to facilitate that. If your department's not on board for it, foreign fire tax and the unions have always been really good ways to get stuff done in your department. So thank you to Local 3970 for getting me in. Can't wait for tomorrow. And this is the stuff you're going to see. I have foam rollers, 10 foam rollers and 18 tennis balls, and we're going to make you feel all sorts of ways. I'm bringing some pads also, so sore little backs or your backs don't get all sore on the floor. So let's talk about it finally. After all that, let's talk about flexibility versus mobility. Because whenever someone says so-and-so got hurt, or what do you need to work on, or what should we train, a lot of people are like, I need to work on my flexibility. My hamstrings have always been tight, or my hip flexors have always been tight, and I need to stretch them out. Or my shoulders, I need more shoulder flexibility because I hurt my shoulder last year at work when I was reaching for something. And I agree that flexibility plays a role in injuries, in injury reduction, in staying away from injuries, all that stuff. But there's also the other half of that, which is mobility. And that's a little underserved in terms of recognition and us doing it. But I think in terms of what's more important and what's going to keep you out of being injured, mobility is probably something you should spend more time on versus just flexibility. And that's because flexibility is, let's say, if I lay on my back, and I grab onto my shin, can I pull my knee to my chest? And that's a flexibility of like my butt and my hamstrings and my hips. But if I'm standing up, how high can I raise my knee up in the air without grabbing onto it? Flexibility is like a passive thing, and mobility is you using your muscles to get you in a position kind of thing. So I wrote down a few different things here. Flexibility is usually stretching and static, and mobility is usually moving. Flexibility is passive, mobility is active. Flexibility example is, can you stand up, can you bend over and touch your toes? And then mobility is, can you pick something up off the ground? We also have flexibility is getting put into a position, and mobility is getting yourself in and out of positions under your own power. So those are two big differences. And we think about a majority of firefighting tasks and EMS lifts and EMS tasks and stuff like that. We don't want to be put in positions and stretched necessarily. What we want to do is put yourself in a position and then get yourself out of it, whether that's bending over to pick someone up or crawling to a location, bending over to pick up a ladder, reaching up to pull ceiling. Those are all positions that you're going to move yourself in and out of instead of having someone just pull your leg up to your ear or bend your arms back behind you while they put a foot in your back or something like that and stretching you out. So mobility, much closer to what we're actually doing. Flexibility, though, helps us be more mobile, hopefully. So why does this all matter? Like, who cares, dude? You're just saying a bunch of words. Just keep me not hurt. That'd be super duper, right? And I agree. It's important for this little fact here. Certain parts of your body need mobility to remain healthy. The other parts need stability, which is where I usually mess these terms up because I interject stability with flexibility, but we're talking about flexibility and mobility. Let's talk about what joints need mobility and why I think this is more important. Namely, your ankles, your hips, and your upper back between your shoulder blades, right? Also your shoulder blade, and then parts of your neck. The stable joints are the joints that need stability to be healthy, are the hinge joints typically. So like your knee, right? Your lower back, we can think of it that way. Your elbow, your fingers, they need stability. Whereas in the ball and socket or floating joints, your wrist, your shoulder, like I said, your hip, your ankle need mobility. For this reason, and we talked about this briefly before, if I'm lacking mobility in my hip and I go to bend over and my hips stop bending, the joints above and below, which remember are stable joints, your knee and your lower back, those joints are supposed to be stable. If your mobile joint, your hip, which is in the middle of those two, stops moving at a certain degree, your knee and your lower back become mobile joints to accomplish the task, so to reach down to the ground. So, and then they're doing the job they're not supposed to do. They eventually get worn out. You have knee and back pain. All that to be said, that your ability to keep the mobile joints mobile and keep the stable joints stable and have enough flexibility in your muscle bodies to get down to the ground and get back up, that's what keeps you out of injury and that's what keeps you healthy and stuff like that. So, maybe clear as mud, right? But I'm going to tell you how I use, let me just go back to my little thing here. Let me tell you real quickly, because you're not getting tested in this. This isn't your job. This is my job, right? So let me just tell you how I use each thing. Flexibility being first. Flexibility to me is long, slow stretching or long duration stretching, or feet out in front, reach for your toes, hold it for 30 seconds stretching. That's how I think of training flexibility. It's also the chest stretch. Put your forearm on an upright or a vertical surface, keep your elbow lower than your shoulder, and then step through, and you're going to stretch out your chest in the front of your shoulder, and you're going to kind of drag it out for 30 seconds at a crack, right? That's how I typically think of flexibility. Mobility is running through full range of motion and right to the end of your range of motion, but using your own muscles to power yourself in and out of those range of motions. And I train that during movements, during exercise. Squatting to an appropriate depth while still maintaining spinal integrity of your lower back is a fantastic mobility exercise because you're making the mobile joints be mobile and you're stopping before the stable joints have to take over. So you're stopping before that little butt wink thing, right? You're stopping before your knees cave in or your feet pitch in or some other weird workaround happens because your hips and your ankles aren't doing enough. Remember, the knees and the lower back are victim joints. That's a good way to think of it too. They're victim joints. They're victims of decreased mobility in the ankle and the hips. So when I do long, slow stretching, I use it for after workout because there's these little receptors in your muscle body. And we're not going to get too nerdy here. This is still going to be pertinent to what we're talking about. But they react. And so they have a mind of their own. So when there's some in your muscles and there's some in your connective tissue, your ligaments and your tendons. And they do a couple things. One of them grabs on tighter when it feels a threat, so it flexes. And the other one, when it gets triggered, it lets go, it relaxes. Long slow stretching is a great way to down-regulate your nervous system because you're telling your muscles, let's activate the let go receptors in there. They can chill out now. I'm not chasing the lion anymore. The bear doesn't want to eat me anymore. So I'm going to tell these other receptors that it's time to let go and chill out and relax my muscles a little bit. So it's a great way to down-regulate your nervous system, get you out of fight or flight, and chill out a little bit, along with some breathing and some other work. But that means that after you're done with your workout, it's a great way to start the recovery process. So that's when I use long, slow stretching. When I use mobility, like I said, it's during the workout, but also before, it's a thing called movement preparation, where you could take the same movement as a long, slow stretch, but now you're doing it in 1 to 2 to 3 second pulses. And not dynamic or violent pulses, but let's say you're doing a calf stretch, and this is one of the more popular ones that we do, a push-up position calf stretch. You're just in a push-up position, you hook one foot over the other, and then you try to rock your heel down to the ground. You're stretching out like a single leg down dog almost. All you're going to do is sit back into that stretch, pause for half a second, and then use your calf muscle to push out of it. And sink back into it for half a second, use your calf muscle to push out of it. And do that 8 to 10 times. Now we're using mobility as a movement prep thing. We're quote unquote priming the muscles, priming the nervous system, turning it on, activating, whatever cool term you think of, but we can use it also in there. We also do lunges. We also do trap bar deadlifts and stagger stance stuff that makes your ankles and your knees move the way they're supposed to while maintaining good knee alignment and lower back integrity and full range of motion. I'd rather have you go slow, drop weight down, use an assistance device like holding on to a beam or holding on to the TRX, and be able to get your knee all the way down to the ground in a reverse lunge, compared to feel unstable there, feel weak there, shorten the movement, and now your knee gets to 8 inches above the ground, but that feels like your limit, so then you just power out of it without ever reaching that end range of motion. Remember, mobility doesn't have to be what you think of when you think of long, slow stretching, which is like that burning, tearing, terrible, painful sensation you have to breathe through. It's really just going and using your joints in the range of motion they were intended to be. So my suggestion to you guys and gals out there is do both, but use them for what they're intended to do, okay? For me, like I said, stretching and flexibility training is long, slow stretching after a workout, and mobility training is stuff I do during the workout, paying attention to my intended range of motion and hoping to maintain or build on that range of motion with load or speed or control or just tempo and stuff like that. Hope that was clear enough, okay? But don't think that just because you hurt your shoulder last year or hurt your back last year, that stretching is going to create more flexibility and then keep you from getting hurt again, because that may not be the truth. You may need less stretching. Your lower back might be too mobile. It might be too loosey-goosey. You may not have enough muscular integrity in your lower back, and that's why you hurt your back, not because your back is too tight. It's because your back is too loose because your hips are too quote-unquote tight. So be careful just running to flexibility and stretching as the cure-all for any of your injuries that happen. It takes a little more keen of an eye. It takes a little more coaching, a little more diagnostic from a professional. Okay, that's the best way to do it. But if you start stretching things that feel tight, understand that this is another conversation altogether. They may feel tight because they're weak and they're trying their hardest, but they're just so tired. And because of that fatigue in there, they're trying to clamp down, and that clamp down is a protective measure, because if they don't clamp down, they're going to get ripped apart. And that tension that they're creating is actually trying to keep you from getting hurt, but here you are trying to stretch it out and get that tension to go away by dragging it and trying to stretch it out as much as you can to feel better. So all that to be said, be careful jumping to conclusions. Be careful prescribing your own rehab stuff. I've said it before, I have several practitioners. If you're interested or if you have questions about your injuries, I got people all the way from physical therapists down to where I am at the personal trainer level. I have people at all levels that I can send you to figure out what's going on, give you the best course of treatment instead of you just stabbing in the dark and hopefully not getting hurt again because you did the wrong thing or moved the wrong way. Because that happens, man. It happens. If you're interested in having me as your personal training coach, I can do that. What I do is I send out workouts weekly. And if you're my client now and you're listening, you're like, yeah, almost weekly. Well, most of the time I send them out weekly. And I also adjust them to fit your goals and needs and stuff like that. And they update a few times a month. And we go for 2 months and we start all over again. If you're interested in that, just reach out. Send me an email on the Fourth Shift website. You can hit me on Instagram, Fourth Shift Firefighter. Number 4TH for both those things. And that's it, man. I hope that made sense. It was a little down and dirty. We're not doing that much talking when I go to West Chicago tomorrow. We're doing a lot of doing. We're going to talk about that for about 5 minutes and answer some questions. Then the foam roller and the tennis ball come out to play, and it's just pain face time. It's fun for me. It's terrible for you guys, but hey, you won it, so you're going to get it. All right. If you like it, donate coffee money. If you don't want to donate money, I'm down with that. Go on and rate and review the podcast. Positive only. Like, obviously, I'm not asking you to leave bad ones. If you don't like it, just forget about it. Just delete it. Forget I ever existed. If you like it, let me know. Let's all keep being more capable and durable on the job and away from it. We'll talk to you guys soon, and be a Fourth Shift Firefighter.